Welcome to Review Set Scare with Jess and Blair. I'm Jess.
I'm Blair.
Blair, how are you?
I'm doing okay, man. How about you?
I'm doing very well. Not only is it Friday for the both of us,
Yeah.
a very rare occurrence.
It is, yes.
But we are cruising through the month of November, aka sequels month. We're already onto our third film. And tonight, we have an absolute classic to talk about. But before we do that, what do you say we chat a little bit about some horror news? Blairski, you want to kick this one off?
Yes, so they have finally released the Terrifier 3 teaser trailer that me and you saw in theaters.
Okay.
Publicly.
Okay.
So if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere. Terrifier 3 teaser trailer. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, definitely. Whether you're like Blair and love it, whether you're like me and I fell asleep.
No, you didn't fall asleep watching the trailer. You just fell asleep watching the movie.
Watch the trailer. The trailer is really interesting, and I think it's going to be a nice little fresh resurgence to an already super fresh franchise.
Yeah, taking place over the Christmas holidays. It looks like it could be a lot of fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Speaking of holidays, we've already had Thanksgiving here in Canada.
Yeah.
I think American Thanksgiving is coming up, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this weekend, next weekend.
Yeah, I believe it might even be this weekend. Or maybe next weekend.
Yeah.
Either way, Eli Roth's Thanksgiving is now out in theaters. I am going to try and see it this weekend, but people so far are absolutely loving it.
Yeah, I read briefly, like this was like his highest rated movie as far as people loving it, which is great, which is really, really cool. Eli Roth. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, apparently the kills are brutal. The gore is there, and so is the comedy. Apparently the comedy is really good. And to me, those are the best kind of movies. So
yeah, and that's stuff that he's always used in his movies, is the comedy aspect, whether it's super dark comedy or a little bit lighter, but it should be fun. The trailers look great.
Yeah.
I think you and I collectively have seen like 3 different trailers for this movie.
Yeah.
And they're all really different and they all look great.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see it, man. I'm really excited to see it. So I'll be checking it out this weekend at some point. But yeah, if you're a fan of horror and Eli Roth and Thanksgiving, just definitely check it out.
If you're a fan of Thanksgiving, definitely go.
If you're a fan of Thanksgiving. So my final piece of horror news I have here is the official trailer for Blumhouse and Lionsgate's new film, Imaginary, has dropped.
Okay.
Now, I can't fully remember, but I feel like, Jesse, when me and you went to Saw 10, they showed a little teaser for it, but it didn't show much. It kind of left it for your imagination.
Imaginary. I'm trying to recall.
Nonetheless, the trailer has dropped. It looks decent. Very much seems like any other kind of possession movie.
Fair enough.
But kind of more along the lines of a possessed object. So we're talking like Annabelle or Chucky. This time it is a teddy bear.
Okay.
Basically an imaginary friend to this little girl, hence the name Imaginary.
Excellent.
But it looks like it could be all right. So definitely, if you haven't already seen it, check that trailer out.
I mean, Blumhouse has been knocking it out of the park. It feels like every week there's a new Blumhouse movie coming out.
I know.
It's like A24 every week. It's like, there's a new movie being produced by A24 and it looks great.
It's the only 2 studios in horror that seem to be just doing it on the regular,
Yeah, absolutely. It's just pumping it out. Yeah. Anything else?
That's all I've got for horror news, bro.
I've just got 2 here. Stranger Things: The First Shadow, a stage play taking place in the Stranger Things universe and written by the Duffer Brothers, will begin previews tonight.
Where's it playing at?
So November 17th tonight at the Phoenix Theatre on London's West End. Okay. Just previews right now. The show will officially open December 14th. Pretty cool.
That is really cool.
It's unfortunately, as somebody who does theater, more people need to go and see theater. So hopefully this will, much like when Harry Potter and I think Harry Potter and the Cursed Child came out, we kind of saw a resurgence of people going to the theater. So hopefully this will get more butts in seats to go and see live theater, which definitely needs to happen.
I agree.
And then finally, for horror news, something sad news as the artist behind one of the most iconic movie posters in the history of cinema has passed away. Roger Castell, the artist behind the poster for Jaws,
Oh no,
has passed away at the age of 91.
it's a good life, man.
Long life, long
Yeah.
life. And he also painted the poster for The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay, that's crazy, man. Two
Another
great
iconic.
movies.
But honestly, when you think of movie posters, I immediately think of Jaws.
Yeah.
Like just iconic. What a great, great, great poster. Roger Castell, we at Reviews That Scare salute you. That's all I have for horror news. What do you say we get into this week's episode, the
Let's
third
do it.
episode in the month we're calling Sequels Month, goes to 1985's Return of the Living Dead. Runtime on this one, 1 hour, 31 minutes. Blairski,
Doesn't get
initial
much better
thoughts.
than that, brother.
Perfect, hey? I thought I read somewhere, hopefully this doesn't pop up in fun facts, but a nice little segue. I believe there is another cut that is like an extra 25 minutes or something, which is a lot.
Yeah, that's a significant amount of time, man.
Yeah, that is a lot. Now that we are into fun facts, why don't you kick this one off? What do you got?
Okay, well, they had originally planned to make this movie in 3D
Yeah,
and under the direction of none other than Tobe Hooper.
one of our favorites.
Yeah, exactly, man. But I guess they ran into difficulty getting funding for it. Tobe Hooper ended up moving on to work on another project. So that's where that went. But could you imagine what it would be if it was in 3D directed by Tobe Hooper?
I mean,
Watch.
after coming off of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, our first episode of the month, it's like I honestly I think I could see it.
I could see it too. I wouldn't have believed it if I've only seen the original Texas Chainsaw, but after seeing 2, I totally believe
it's possible.
Oh man, next piece of horror news. This movie was purposely written so that it would be radically different from George A. Romero's films.
Okay, cool.
So I guess after Night of the Living Dead, the two men behind it, obviously Romero and Russo, the guy for this movie, they went their separate ways. And Russo obtained the rights to anything with the words Living Dead in it.
Yeah.
Where Romero was free to create his own series of sequels, starting with Dawn of the Dead, I believe.
Of the Dead. So yeah, Russo was Living Dead. Romero was just Dead.
Or Of the Dead or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was purposely written to be completely different from George A. Romero's work, which I think is kind of cool. I think it's pretty unique.
I thought I read somewhere that it was like it was amicable. They're kind of separating of the two franchises. Like it was, I think it was their idea to do. You can do Living Dead, I'll do Of the Dead, and we're cool with that kind of.
Oh yeah, it's not like they had a falling out or anything.
Yeah,
just what they decided to do, and they both found success. In their own ways, right?
Absolutely.
Final fun fact of God: Roger Ebert, our favorite critic of horror, he actually gave this movie 3 out of 4 stars,
nice,
writing that the film is kind of a sensation machine made of the usual ingredients, and the real question is whether it's done with style. And it is.
Okay, nice.
As per Roger Ebert, you don't hear kind words like that in horror much from his rating. So.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've talked about him. I thought I read somewhere that his partner Siskel did not like it as much.
Okay.
I thought I read that earlier today, but c'est la vie. Okay, I got a couple of fun facts here. On the back of Freddy's jacket in the theatrical version, the words "fuck you" are displayed. After realizing that the shot could not be used in case it was ever shown on TV, a second jacket was made that says television version. And it can be seen in the TV version of the movie.
Really? That's hilarious.
Yeah, very punk rock. I love
Oh
it.
my god, that's so funny.
Miguel A. Nunez Jr., who played Spider, was homeless when he was casted in this movie. Pretty
Okay.
cool.
That is
Pretty
cool,
cool.
man.
What else do I have here? Finally, some of the zombies extras were paid bonuses to eat real calf brains in the film.
What?
Yeah.
What? How much were the bonuses? I want to know.
That's a good question. I can't imagine it was crazy. I don't think extras get paid all that much.
No.
I didn't look and see what the budget for this film was, but I can't imagine it was a whole lot. And I do imagine that all of the, or most of the money was spent for special effects. But yeah, paid bonus. Now, if you were an extra, a zombie extra in this movie,
Yeah.
would you eat real calf brains for a few extra bucks?
Were they cooked? Are these calf brains cooked?
No way, man. If you're a zombie, you're not going to be asking, "Oh, are these calf brains cooked?"
Well, fair enough. No, I wouldn't, unless those few extra bucks were pretty significant.
Yeah, mad cow disease. I mean, that would turn you into a zombie. Oh goodness. Let's talk about the fine folks who made this extraordinary film, shall we?
Yeah.
This one directed by Dan O'Bannon, also directed in 1991's The Resurrected. He was more known as a writer, which
Okay.
leads us to written by. Of course, Dan O'Bannon Blairski also wrote 1979's Alien,
Okay.
1990's Total Recall, and 1981's Heavy Metal. Some big movies in there.
Some big movies in there.
Huge franchises there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rudy Ricci wrote this one, but also acted in both 1968's Night of the Living Dead and in 1978's Dawn of the Dead, which is really, really cool. You had mentioned John A. Russo also wrote 1968's Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And then finally, Russell Strainer played Johnny in Night of the Living Dead. They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Really? That's
Yes,
him, hey?
sir.
That's him?
Yes, sir.
Right
Yeah.
on, man. That's the best known scene from that movie.
Yeah, one of the opening scenes. Yeah, or the opening
The
scene.
opening scene,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, helped write this one, which I thought was pretty darn cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
This one, what a massive cast. I'm only going to talk about a few, but I'm going to say it right off the bat. I loved the acting in this movie. We'll get into it later.
Oh,
Starring
man.
Clu Gulager as Bert, also starred in 1985's A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, 1971's The Last Picture Show, and 2019's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Also starring James Karen as Frank, starred in 1982's Poltergeist, 2001's Mulholland Drive, 1988's Return of the Living Dead 2, 1976's All the President's Men, and as Dr. Adam Steele in 1965's Frankenstein meets the Space Monster.
Okay.
Also starring Don Calfa as Ernie, starred in 1989's Weekend at Bernie's and 1991's Bugsy. Also starring Tom Matthews as Freddy, also starred in Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, 1988's Return of the Living Dead Part 2, and in 1991's Blood Match. This one starring Beverly Randolph as Tina, also starred in 2023's The Searching and 2017's Death House. Linnea Quigley as Trash, also starred in 1984's Silent Night, Deadly Night, 1988's Night of the Demons, 1990's Linnea Quigley's Horror Workout, 1988's A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and 1988's Hollywood Chainsaw Hooker.
All about them horror movies.
Absolutely. Yeah, you look at it, and honestly, this is a massive cast, and a lot of them went on to be doing, 8 films a year, mostly in the horror genre. And especially kind of in kind of the realm of the B world.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
we love the B world.
Yeah.
But big resumes for most everyone in this cast, which is fantastic. Synopsis for 1985's Return of the Living Dead, courtesy of our dear friends at IMDb. When two bumbling employees at a medical supply warehouse accidentally release a deadly gas into the air, vapors cause the dead to rise again as zombies.
I love it. It's
Blairski,
okay. Yeah.
when two bumbling employees, I
Yeah.
feel like it could be us.
Yeah.
This leads us to one of our favorite segments of the show, Kill Count.
Kill count. The time of the show we count the kills.
Blairski, do we have a kill count for this one?
Okay, well, first off, we're back on the wild kill count train with this
Yay! Yes.
one. So I wasn't able to get a kill count myself
Okay.
while watching it. I just wasn't able to do it. I started it off and I got lost.
Yeah.
It differs greatly depending where you look online. The horror fandom page giving a kill count of 15.
Okay.
But then you got the list of deaths fandom page giving a total kill count of 4,496.
This is the same case we ran into with Piranha. where it's like-
Yeah.
so we're in the ballpark between like half a dozen and like 250,000. It's just the way you look at it. I love that. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess like the 15 is probably just the deaths you kind of see in the movie.
Yeah.
That 4,496 is probably including the nuke that was dropped right at the end of the
Fair
movie.
enough. Fair enough.
You know,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking, right? That's the only way I can think you get.
That makes
4,000.
sense. I mean, you think about it, they mentioned several times in this film hundreds of undead, hundreds of zombies.
Yeah.
Zombies got to eat. Am I right?
They got to eat them brains. Them brains.
Oh, live brains. This leads to one of our favorite segments, likes and dislikes. The portion of the show where we talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, and everything in between. Blairski, where would you like to start with this one?
You know what? I'm going to start with my dislikes. 'Cause
Okay.
I do have some.
Yeah.
But I've got way more likes. It's going to take longer. So I'm just going to get these dislikes out of the way.
Let's get them out of the way.
They're more nitpicking than anything. I got a little confused with the use of the different time zones and times. I didn't understand that at all. Like the whole
Yeah.
point of that at all.
Yeah.
What did I write here? I'm not sure if I would totally count this as a dislike, more just confusion. But I was under the impression those half dogs were fake.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was just plastic showcasing the anatomy of inside of a dog.
Yeah.
So when they started moving around as if they were zombies, I got a little thrown off by that. Again, just nitpicking. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
The acting. You you said you love the acting. Okay.
Yeah.
I do. I love the characters.
Yeah.
I love the characters. I love the dialogue, how over the top it is, but I don't find it that good.
See, this is where I think you and I differ a bit. I love when horror kind of leans into the comedy.
Yeah.
I've mentioned it a million times on the show, whether it's intentional or unintentional. I love it when it's ridiculous, funny, over the top, campy, and you do as well.
I do too, for sure.
But that's where I really love the acting, where it's like they're trying to be so serious or the characters are just so ridiculous. Yeah, I can understand where a lot of people are turned off by the acting.
For me, it was more trash and suicide, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's more those two characters, but
Fair enough.
I had that written down here. Another just nitpicky thing is I don't know how I feel with the zombies being able to talk and like give like their explanation as to why they're doing this.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know?
I'm guessing you're
The
thinking,
interview.
like the interview, the woman zombie.
Yeah, they're interviewing
half apart
her.
in the morgue. Yeah. So in defense, there are two moments in this movie where the script really shines, and it's two lines from a zombie. It comes from a massive zombie attack. The first one, the zombie leans into an ambulance, pulls over the mic, and says to dispatch, "Send more paramedics."
and
And then he comes back and later
cops.
it says, "Send more cops," which
Mhm.
I just thought was hilarious. I think
So
those are
funny.
two of the funniest lines in the movie.
So
and the
funny.
zombie is just dead serious, but send more paramedics. I love it.
And I didn't have a problem with that. I also thought
Yeah.
it was hilarious. It was more that interview sequence because I was like,
Yeah.
wait, like why are you caring? She's like saying she's eating brains because she's hurting from being dead.
Yeah,
And it's like,
what is it? It heals the pain or something.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't need that for zombies. But again, just nitpicking.
Yeah.
The last thing I have is just the ending was very abrupt.
Yeah,
Very
Yeah.
abrupt. But there's a sequel, so
There
it's,
is.
it's not that big of a deal.
there is a sequel. Yeah. I just want to mention here, I just have written down, where is it? This movie had me at punk rock and zombies. That's like-
fair enough.
If I had never seen this before and somebody had just said, man, this movie has punk rock and zombies in it, I would have been like, that, say no more.
Have you
say
seen
no
this
more.
movie before?
It's been a while, but I have seen it like probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
Punk rock.
I had
and
never
zombies,
first
man.
watch for me, man.
It's a very different than Night of the Living Dead.
Oh,
that's for sure.
100%.
We can't watch a zombie movie and not talk about the makeup and
Yeah.
special effects.
Yeah.
Let's do that. I mean, straight up, and I say this with a lot of love. It's campy goodness. The makeup, the blood, the special effects. It is so good. But it still has that. It's rooted in the campiness of the movie.
They kind of had two different styles of the zombies. So I noticed some were a lot more human-like,
Yeah.
maybe with some makeup on, but they were very human-like, and
Yeah.
some were almost very cartoony.
Yeah.
Like, either way, I loved all of them.
Yeah, even I mean, going back to the two zombies that we've already mentioned, the zombie leaning into the ambulance to
Mhm.
make the calls to dispatch is very much, I mean, a recognizable human who's wearing makeup that's falling off the face. Whereas the half zombie being narrated or being interviewed in the morgue
Mhm.
almost comes off as like an animatronic.
It's really cool, though.
Really cool. I just love the way that the spinal cord is just kind of flapping around during the
Yeah.
interview. It's so cool.
You were saying
Um,
earlier at work today that it was very reminiscent of
Tom Savini.
very reminiscent of Tom Savini's work.
And it's like this is like the time for Tom Savini, and Tom Savini, I believed, worked on Night of the Living Dead. I feel like he worked on one of the early ones.
I think you're right. I think it is Night of the
I thought
Living
it was
Dead,
the
unless it
original.
was Dawn of the Dead, maybe.
No, I think he worked on Dawn of the Dead, but I also think he worked on Night of the Living Dead
Okay.
in some kind of capacity.
Yeah.
But it just came off, and this is like it. I mean, it very much could have been. It's the perfect time era for Tom Savini. It was very Tom Savini-esque. Lots of that, that red blood.
Yeah.
I loved it. How about anytime a zombie was attacking a human, it was like biting right on the skull, and it was like the sound of an apple biting into an apple.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was
Yeah.
so cool.
Going right for the brain.
Yeah.
Right for the brain.
What did you think of now? There's a few scenes where we see the undead or zombies
Yeah.
rising from the ground, obviously in the cemetery. What did you think of those scenes?
That was one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, I have it written down here. I just love how they blast "It's Party Time."
Yeah. Yep.
It's so loud. It's just
Yeah.
playing so loud while all the zombies are breaking through the ground. Oh man,
Yeah.
I loved it so much.
Yeah. I loved the whole setup of this movie. Right at the beginning in the medical supply warehouse,
Mhm.
the whole Night of the Living Dead movie, they're talking about it and how it was actually based on true events.
Mhm.
I just love that they acknowledged Night of the Living Dead, and then we're like, no, it really happened, and we have the zombies in the basement sealed up. I love that whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And I love the intro card that simply reads, "The events portrayed in this film are all true. The names are real names of real people and real organizations." I
Yeah.
love that.
I loved it too. And then right after it with the title,
Yeah.
they show the title card, and in the background, you see the zombie's face like defrosting
Yeah.
in the glass. It was really
Yeah.
cool, man. It was really well done.
I love it. And then, of course, that zombie in the basement.
Yeah.
I think they call it the tar zombie. It looks like it's covered in tar.
Yeah.
How fantastic was that?
It's really cool, man.
Oh,
It's really cool.
I love how in this movie, all of the zombies, they all have different characters. They don't look all the same.
No,
You know,
no.
you see the tar zombie, you see
There's
Freddy
that.
as a zombie, you see Trash as a zombie, and they're all so different.
Yeah.
Which is really,
Tra-
really cool.
Trash as a zombie, man. It shows her getting completely ripped apart by like a bunch of zombies.
Yeah.
Which is the way she said she wanted to die.
Yep.
So, but it shows her getting completely ripped apart. Then when it shows her as a zombie, she doesn't have a scratch on her, but she's
Yeah.
still naked, and then
Yeah.
her skin's like just green. But
I
it's
do
still
love
cool.
that green skin. We see the green skin as well with I think it's like one of the first zombies we see in the medical supply warehouse. The one that they decapitate, but it's still very much moving along. The one that they end up chopping into pieces
Oh, the
and putting
cadaver or
the
whatever?
cadaver. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I just love the color of the zombie. It's green. It looks like it's molding. I just love that. And then we see it again with Freddy as well. His kind of blue gray skin.
Yeah.
I think that's great. It's so cool. Back to the special effects briefly. You had mentioned the dog cut in two.
Yeah.
There's also, I mean, that whole scene was it was something else.
Yeah.
I just that whole coming back to life, the animation of the dog, but also there's the scene with the butterflies as well, which I thought was really, really cool.
It was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, everything to do with special or practical effects, I think, was mostly practical in this movie.
Yeah.
Were absolutely fantastic. As I said, very much seemed like Tom Savini. It was not. It's Tom Savini.
Yeah.
But just as good. It was just amazing.
It's honestly, I would consider the 80s, although not, I mean, the 80s take a lot of crap for,
Yeah.
Not great movies. But honestly, 70s and 80s are a prime time for special effects
Mhm.
and really cool over the top makeup work in horror movies, especially.
Yeah.
So awesome. Let's go back to the script. We mentioned it briefly. It's fantastic.
It's so
honestly,
good.
it's so over the top. There's another scene in particular between the two paramedics, Bert and Freddy, where the paramedics have just taken Bert and Freddy's vitals, and they're trying to explain to them that they don't have a pulse, so technically they're dead, but they're alert and conscious, and they're talking to them, so technically they're still alive, but they don't really know what they are.
Yeah.
I just think the dialogue, the back and forth, the rat-tat-tat, if you will, is so good in this movie.
You know what I noticed like an hour 10 into the movie? That the last two main characters still alive, other than the punkers, were Bert and Ernie.
Yeah, Bert and Ernie. Bert and Ernie.
I was like, well, Bert and Ernie, Sesame Street, clue it right away. I'm not sure if Sesame Street was around in 85. I think it was, but
Yeah, it's been around for a while. Yeah.
Just something I noticed that I had to mention. Bert and Ernie.
So we've really hammered home that this movie is far more of a comedy than Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, big time.
But even though it felt like a comedy for a lot of it, there's still some pretty cool, scary scenes in this one. The scene that comes to mind right away for me is when the paramedics head back to the ambulance. The paramedic is sitting in the driver's seat and turns on the headlight, and the light from the headlights shines on the horde of the undead.
Mhm.
And it is just, you see it briefly before the undead attack, and it is creepy as hell. The makeup is so cool, and there is so much depth to the group of zombies that for all we know, there's 5 people standing there, or there's 1,000 zombies there.
Mhm.
And it's so hard to tell, but you just know that no matter how many there are, it's going to be trouble.
It was a very creepy part. Another part that creeped me out was just watching was it Freddie and Bert turn
Yeah, yeah,
Was it Bert that he was
Yeah.
with? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So watching Freddie and Bert turn and just the amount they were suffering and like, I don't know, it was pretty brutal, man. That
and
whole bit was brutal.
they are turning for most of the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Before they actually become zombies, they don't become. Well, Freddy doesn't become a zombie till right at the end, and Bert kills himself. Right, and he prevents
Yeah.
himself. He prevents himself from turning, which is also a pretty horrific scene, to be honest with you.
He helps himself into a cremator.
Yeah, burns himself alive.
Something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty horrific. Pretty horrific. Anything else that's jumping out at you? Any more likes on this one?
I've got a whole list, man. I'm just trying to kind of go through it to see what we haven't just kind of talked about already.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can quickly mention that Trash was naked the entire film.
The entire film. And then complaining about being cold and wet. And yeah.
The one time she finds like the slimmest article of clothing to cover herself with is when she dies.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. No, I think we've pretty much covered everything though, man.
Yeah, I honestly, one last thing I just put down: zombies, zombies, and more zombies. If you're a
Yeah.
fan of zombies eating humans, watch this movie.
With punk rock.
With punk rock, zombies. Watch this movie.
Yeah,
Watch this movie.
100%.
That is one more. Sorry, before we move along, that
No,
is
no, go.
one more. One last dislike for a movie with punk rockers with zombies. I wish the soundtrack was a little bit better.
Yeah.
I wish. I mean, there was some great hardcore punk bands in the 80s. I would have loved to have seen or heard some, Black Flag or Bad Brains or
I feel
Minor
like-
Threat, or I would have loved to hear those bands. It would have been great.
Yeah, I feel like they just use kind of smaller, more local bands, which is still
agree.
pretty cool too.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I also think that if they were gonna, use those bands I just listed, it maybe would have come off as like extremely aggressive, and they were, I think, trying to hammer home the comedy aspects of it a bit more. So, oh well. This leads us to one of our favorite segments: lessons we learned from watching the 1985's Return of the Living Dead.
Lessons we learned from watching. Insert title of movie here.
The segment of the show where we talk about the valuable life lessons we learned from watching said movie. Blairski, did you learn a single thing?
I learned a few things, Jess.
Okay.
I learned 2AFPT stands for two adult females with perfect teeth,
Yeah.
as per Frank at Unita Medical Supply.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also learned all skeletons come from India, also from Frank at Unita Medical Supply.
Yeah, I put that down too.
My last one, I learned you can break out rigor mortis in a corpse by grabbing the limbs and physically flexing the muscles, as per Ernie at Resurrection Funeral Home.
Those were some pretty tough scenes to watch.
Yeah, they were.
I think you're right. You had mentioned you were confused with Bert turning into a zombie. I think it was Frank
Yeah,
who turned into a zombie with Freddy, not Bert.
I knew it didn't sound right. But that's right. That's all right.
I effed it up, and I apologize profusely. I learned a couple of things here. Where do we have? Don't mess around with chemicals. Familiarize yourself with WHMIS labels.
Yeah.
Be part of safety. Be better.
MSDS.
That's right. The two worst places to be during a zombie outbreak are a cemetery and a morgue.
Yeah.
And this movie has both of those. I learned from, I believe this was from Ernie, the heart is the toughest part of the body to burn due to it being one giant muscle.
Yeah. Yeah. Even harder than bones, apparently.
Yeah, that's right. And then finally, zombies love to eat brains because it makes the pain go away. All right. This leads to one of our favorite segments, Line of the Night.
Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night.
The segment of the show where we discuss our favorite lines from the movie. They might give us chills, they might give us the giggles. All we know is that they are our favorites, Blairski. Do you have a couple lines?
Where do we start, right?
Where do we start? Where do we start?
I do have a couple written down here. This way, you stupid honky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Said by Spider to, I believe, Bert at the time.
Yeah.
This one, Freddie, he's talking to Tina and he's just about to turn. And he says, I can finally see the one thing that will relieve this horrible suffering. And then Tina replies, what, Freddie? And Freddie goes, a live brain.
Live brain.
Right. And it just attacks her. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Freddie again to Tina. Tina, it was wrong of me to lock you up. I had to hurt myself to get out. But I forgive you, darling. And I know you're here because I can smell your brains.
Ooh, smell your brains.
As she's hiding in the attic from him. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
The last thing I have here for Line of the Night is actually the eye chart in the office.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which if you read it, it says, Bert is a slave driver and a cheap son of a bitch.
And you know right away too that it says something.
Yeah,
It's not your regular eye chart. Yeah. Too good. I've got a couple here. One from Freddie. How do you kill something that's already dead? Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. Zombie woman on the morgue table says, I can feel myself rot.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty cool line.
Yeah, it is.
I have one from the character Suicide. He says, you think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.
Yeah.
I've got one from Trash. He says, do you ever fantasize about being killed? I love that. Fantasize about being killed. Yeah. I got one here from Bert and Frank. Bert says, I thought you said if we destroyed the brain, it dies. Frank, it worked in the movie. Bert, well, it ain't working now, Frank. And then Frank responds, you mean the movie lied?
I love it, man. I love that.
And then obviously one that we had mentioned already, the zombie says, send more paramedics.
Yeah.
And send more cops.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's all I have for Line of the Night. That leads us to our favorite segment of the show, Celebrity Lookalike Time.
Celebrity Lookalike Time.
The time of the show where we take a look at the cast and discuss their celebrity doppelgangers. Spoiler alert, it usually comes down to the character's hair. Blairski, what do we have for Celebrity Lookalike Time?
Oh man, my jaw's hurting from like smiling so much right now.
This movie was great.
Okay, so I'm going to get the obvious one out of the way first and foremost. We talked about this earlier today.
Yeah.
The character Spider totally reminded me of the super freak himself, Rick James. And that's all in the hair, baby. All in the hair.
Super freaky.
It was so good. Next up, the character Freddie kind of reminded me of skateboarding legend and MTV superstar Rob Dyrdek.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Just all in the face for that one. And then this is my last one. I got two for the same character. The character Trash 100% reminded me of Gozar the Gozerian from the original Ghostbusters movie.
Okay. Yeah.
And she also kind of reminded me a little bit of David Bowie, especially on the cover of his Aladdin Sane album.
That's right. Yeah, I like that one. That was the one with where he had the lightning bolt over
his face.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trying to remember because there's another album that she kind of reminded me of David Bowie. The album where he's wearing the blue suit, Raoul Duke, I believe is the character that he played, or the Duke he played. That was his character at the time.
Nonetheless, she kind of looks like David Bowie.
David Bowie. Compliment of the show. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Any more?
That's it. That's all I got.
That's it. I've got a couple. The character Ernie, I have 4 different celebrity lookalikes for him.
Okay.
First, Javier Bardem's character in the James Bond film Skyfall. I believe it was Skyfall where he played the villain. He also reminded me of Pauly Shore.
Yeah. Okay.
His eyes, he also reminded me of Robert Downey Jr. in the eyes. And then finally, he reminded me of Pee Wee Herman.
Ernie?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. But maybe not so much the hair, but definitely in the facial features. Yeah.
Okay.
And then finally, Colonel Glover reminded me of Robert Duvall and Red Foreman from that 70s
Yeah,
show.
he totally did. Yeah.
He's basically just a middle-aged white man who is balding.
He's balding.
He looks like Red Foreman. This leads us to our final rating for 1985's Return of the Living Dead Blairski.
Yeah.
Out of 5 skeletons with perfect pearly white teeth, what do you give Return of the Living Dead?
Well, I know I started out our likes and dislikes segment with some dislikes, but that's just because I wanted to get it out of the way. And it was more nitpicking than anything. I absolutely love this movie. I am giving it 4 skeletons with perfect pearly white teeth out of 5.
Yeah, excellent rating. I'm going to go a little bit higher. 4.5 skeletons with perfect pearly white teeth out of 5. It's punk rock. Yeah. It's zombies.
It's fun as fuck.
Movie is cool and very fun. Yeah. Super glad we got to watch this one. Like I said, it has been ages since I've watched it.
Yeah.
And this just reaffirms that this is a movie that you could turn on
anytime.
Like if you were having a house party and you just wanted some like background noise or whatever, put on this movie because this movie is perfect and everyone will love it.
And you can put it on at any point in the movie. You know what I mean? Like you can just tune in at any time. It's great.
Just put it on on repeat. It's highly recommended. It's so good. That being said, we have only one more film.
And it's
sequels month.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a serious note.
It is. It's one that you and I both really enjoy.
Yeah.
It's one that both you and I have seen many times.
Yeah.
And it's one that we're both very eager to talk about.
I know I've never done a review on it before, but I love it. I mean,
I think it might be our first film by this, and we won't say who it is because there's some people who didn't listen to The Wheel, but I think it might be our first review of a film by this particular director.
It 100% is.
But that, of course, will come next week. Yeah. Until then, this has been Reviews at Scare with Jess and Blair. I'm Jess.
I'm Blair. Remember to stay scary.
And eat every and win. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Reviews at Scare. Make sure you check out our Linktree at linktree/reviewsatscare. That's linktr.ee/reviewsatscare, which has links to our Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, Twitch, and many other things. If you'd like to email us, you can reach us at reviewsatscare@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and remember to stay scary and eat every sandwich. A proud member of Pod Nation TV.